Gang, we are live now. We were not live last week because we were being good patriotic Americans and watching the Super Bowl halftime show featuring Kid Rock and showing allegiance to the true America that was being spat upon by the liberal elite at I'm just kidding. No, we didn't stream last week, and we were planning on doing a show about philosophy, so we're gonna do it this weekend. But to get started, I thought we could maybe talk a little bit about the drama on the halftime show, a little lighthearted, because honestly, I found the whole debacle pretty hilarious. And
yeah, it's pretty funny. It was pretty funny. I mean, so I know that the right wing was just like super triggered, but what were they saying exactly? I mean, I can only imagine. It's probably
just the usual that none of these. The main complaint was that it was in Spanish, that they weren't singing in English, and that they weren't that there weren't enough white people, that wasn't representing white America. That's really what it came.
I mean, I saw some white Latinos in it.
Yeah, like what?
Well, yeah, but they weren't the right kind of white people.
The thing I also love is this like Anglophone chauvinism, but I mean, you look at the history of the continent post-colonization, and like, there's a literal fucking state called New Mexico. Like, the second biggest city in the U.S. is called Los Angeles. Texas was part of Mexico. Did they think like no one spoke Spanish like throughout the history of the United? It's just like. So yeah, they're losers, and so they're left out, and so they're bitching and complaining. And they're the funny thing is like at this point, they're the ones getting super triggered about just like the culture war in general, and Libs kind of checked out of it, to be honest.
They're the triggered ones, but what really gets my goat is that these guys they always complain they don't want to listen to this music. The music that they always suggest is the most putrid dog shit country music.
Yeah,
it's not even like good country music. It's like just dog shit.
It's just hella generic. There was this one song that let me see if I can find it.
I have a clip of one of the songs I can put up for us.
Is it the Drink My Beer one?
I think drink my beer. I'll beat my wife.
No, wait. It's pretty hilarious.
I'll fuck my truck.
Take my oxys.
I'll take my opioids.
I just want to shoot my Oxycontin.
Yeah, no, but wait, what? I think we're thinking of the same song where he's like, I want to I think he says, is it Kiss My Fish or something? It's really a weird song. I just want to catch my fish. Oh, I thought he said, it sounds like Kiss. Drive my truck, drink my beer. It's so stupid, dude.
How did this become a culture?
I don't know, man. They're so caricatural. It's so hilarious. It's like such this. I always make fun of like this mawkish sort of like hell yeah brother culture.
Brother.
Yeah, brother. It's just like they're all such a caricature. Okay, wait. Yeah, this is I think it.
Yeah.
This is so funny.
Yeah, Mr. President, please make him.
Hold on, this is not playing the right way.
There's no right way to play that. Honestly, that was already.
Wait. Okay, let's see.
There we go.
I'm begging you, sir, make it real. I know you can. I wanna run in the sun with Goku. It's my only dream. Please, sir, I need this. If you won't do it, then God's not real.
Hey, this is a parody of it.
I know you can't bring to life and make in the Constitution, in the Declaration. It's on the back of the dollar. I know my rights. Yeah.
Hold on, I think that's not the exact clip that we were looking for.
Is it you're looking for the Catch My Fish one, right?
Yeah.
That is just I heard that. I was just laughing so hard. They had Kid Rock in this show. Who the fuck cares about Kid Rock?
Well, it just shows that, because I remember after the election, there was this whole thing that this is the cruel kids table, that MAGA now owns the culture, that liberal wokeness is dead, that you know, these new like MAGA cruel kids table is what they call it. They're now in charge. And
yeah, with excellent artists like Forgiato Blow, that fucking
yeah,
idiot.
but they completely blew any kind of chance at cultural domination like immediately.
They never really had any, man. Like,
Right. They never had any. And it's
They
funny
never
because like they had the Peter Thiel AstroTurf whole Dime Square thing to try to win over the hipsters. That never really produced any culture of note. I mean, they had the Red Scare podcast and like some bullshit. And I guess they have that guy Clavicular now, who's another really weird and bizarre.
That guy's popping up everywhere now.
He's popping up everywhere. He's definitely being
Nonsense.
pushed by Peter Thiel. But
he's just
he
so
doesn't even
weird.
support JD Vance. Like,
Yeah, he's just so weird too. Like,
yeah, and he's yeah. I mean,
got
I don't
no
want to go on about that guy. I'm tired of hearing about him, to be honest.
yeah, I understand, yeah.
But you know, they have no cultural purchase and they have no cultural skill whatsoever. And they're self-ghettoizing themselves. And it kind of reminds me of what like the far subcultural left does when they self-ghettoize, and that kind of like you know, the kind of anarcho like subculturalism that like failed the left for many years of self-ghettoization. And it seems like the right is kind of embracing that in a way, but in their own like because they have, you know, billionaire backers behind it. But you know, it's
Yeah, but if you're detestable, there's only so much pushing that can be done, right? You have
right.
to push someone with charisma, and like Clavicular is not it.
I mean, none of these people are
I
compelling.
think a lot of these people who like him do see him as having charisma, though. But yeah. But the Bad Bunny halftime show, I will say, it was good. I'm not a
Yeah, it was
big
really
Bad
good.
Bunny fan. Like, it's, you know, I'm a prog nerd. Like, I like that kind of a jazz nerd. But it was good musically, aesthetically. Like, it was an inspiring message. I was depressed at the moment because of like the whole blockade on Cuba.
Yeah,
So,
it's
you know, like I was kind of like, oh, you got to say something about Cuba. But yeah, it was still aesthetically inspiring. And it was this kind of, you know, this is a real America.
He said Cuba and
He
Venezuela.
did say Cuba.
Yeah.
And there was a reference to blackouts in Puerto Rico. So you could maybe say they were kind of hinting at it.
Yeah.
But regardless of all that, like it was aesthetically inspired. It was this kind of we are the world. This is America. This is, you know, this kind of open vision of what America is that I think
Also,
is,
there was an allusion to the, like, you know, I mean, kind of the sugarcane industry.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, it starts
Which
out
in
with
many
the
ways is, you know, naturally is gonna bring up themes of the plantation and slavery, right? And class struggle. So it's, yeah, you know, honestly, it was a good show. It was a good show.
I know it was as good of a halftime show as I think anyone could have
way better than Kendrick's. I'm sorry. Kendrick's was kind of, yeah. No, I'm gonna
yeah,
say,
you know, I like
something
the
that people don't
Butterfly,
wanna
I like
hear.
Good Kid, Mad City, but after the
Yeah.
whole Drake beef, like I hate Drake too, so I should be like cheering him on, but I just
It
followed
was
this kind of
annoying.
like,
It was
annoying.
Yeah, it was really annoying. And I'm sorry, all the music that came out from it was mid.
Yeah,
People hate
that's
on
what I
me.
thought
It was
too,
all
man.
fucking
I just
mid. It was also like, I'm gonna get shat on. I don't care. I'm gonna rage bait. It was so mid. You know, Not Like Us is the most annoying song ever with the dumbest.
yeah, it's not.
It got on my nerves very.
It got on
fucking
my
bad.
nerves
on my
really
nerves
quick.
so fast. It was,
But it's
so
also like how compelling can you make music that's simply about insulting someone else? It's not
and
going to be
so
very compelling.
uninteresting too, right?
Hey, there are some great songs that are insults. I will say, you know, you
No,
can
that's
craft
true,
a beautiful
but
insult.
no, it's true, but like, you know,
Not in this case. It was.
Yeah,
it was,
but
it was
I
clout
wouldn't
chasing
really put,
demon shit.
I wouldn't put this one up there. But yeah, I just thought, you know, it was a good like.
I think I'm getting shat on for my take.
We're getting pushed back. But listen,
bring it on.
This is, you know, this is just, you know, we're not here for cultural commentary primarily.
Don't hate me because I'm saying the truth.
But the self-ghettoization of the MAGA people was really quite incredible. I thought that they own the state. They're, you know, in control of the government, but culturally they're still basically like doing this self-ghettoization. And I think like
the hard, like, you know, so they won the popular vote for the first time. The Republicans won the popular vote for the first time in how long?
Just like
since
Reagan, probably.
Since Reagan, probably. And it owes not so much also to like the popularity of Trump, but obviously to the unpopularity of Biden, and then Kamala Harris is the most uninspiring figure. Also, there's been massive economic problems recently, and the foreign policy pissed off a large part of the Democratic base. So combination of those factors, them winning the popular vote is a fluke. It's not like in the long term or anything they have hegemony or they have massive popular support. The real Trump heads, that's like 10-20% of the country, I would say, right? 20-30% max. So
Yeah.
the vast majority of people fucking hate these people. And they really like overestimated their influence and their
Yeah, they really
as opposed
blew
to
their
the demoralization of everyone that hates them, right? So yeah, they have no cultural purchase. Like name like the only like good quote unquote right wing artist I can think off the top of my head in terms of music is Morrissey. He's a piece of shit, but he's made good music. His recent music sucks though.
Yeah, it's a problematic. Yeah, his recent music does suck.
Yeah, his recent music has not been inspirational. There's John Lydon of the former Sex Pistols and Public Image Limited, but he's not making new music of note.
Yeah,
either. So
like in their right wing phase, they suck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they have no cultural purchase. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and like the only thing I can think of, like I said, that has cultural purchase right now is that clavicular guy, and he's just like a drug addict who is obsessed with like taking steroids and smashing his bones and
like
being a degenerate on camera.
He's like decomposing.
Yeah, he's
has
going to
to
die very young. Like,
yeah, isn't he like doesn't he like mutilate himself to look like handsome Squidward? Like he gets like
yeah, like they're promoting him because they want to promote general nihilism and eugenics, not because
yeah. Well, like Peter Thiel has this whole, and this is kind of like this sort of post-humanist Nick Landian strain of his thinking. He basically wants cyberpunk.
Yeah.
He basically wants to like buy out, but like bionically enhance the human figure or human form. And blah 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 blah, and like yeah. So
Marcus mentions that people were calling the halftime show a celebration of U.S. imperialism, which I do not. I will say there was a funny take. I thought that it was actually a covert advertisement for the Don Rowe Doctrine, which I don't know if I agree with it literally, but it was a funny take.
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious thing is Puerto Rico is a colony of the U.S. I mean, everything in a way is,
a neo-colony.
Yeah, it's all colonized. The whole fucking
Puerto Rico is very much just a colony.
Just a straight up colony.
One thing I'll say though about any halftime show that you watch is don't expect too much from it in terms of politics. It's like it's literally like run by like Jay-Z organizes all of that.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna be the progressive content is gonna be limited. Yeah, I mean, in general, like I remember when I was in the ISO, and they were so desperate to latch on to every cultural moment, to read into it, sort of like the slow embers of socialism in the background. Yeah, and at a certain point, I was kind of like, can we just like shut up, like.
Well, I remember when the Black Panther movie came on, they were very excited about that.
Yeah.
Really, the Black Panther movie. That movie was obviously had terrible politics, though. Like,
yeah, I mean, I remember walking out of the theater and being like, did the CIA? Well, actually, no, it does make sense. The CIA would help a reactionary monarch overthrow a based third worldist. So yeah, I mean, it kind of did make sense, but yeah, I mean, they were making a reactionary monarch the protagonist, and also trying to show the CIA guy as like somehow having the welfare of African peoples in mind. It's just completely insulting.
That's a sick joke.
It's really like insulting, actually, given the role that the U.S. has played.
Yeah,
and that the CIA specifically has played in places like the Congo. I mean, Patrice Lumumba, right, was most likely killed by a collaboration of the Belgians and the CIA.
Oh yeah.
So I think actually that's known.
It's pretty much, yeah. No, I think they pretty much know exactly how he was killed.
So it's insulting. It's insulting.
But yeah, I don't know if I would say the halftime show was a celebration of U.S. imperialism. I would say it's not as radical as we would like, perhaps, but it was as good as it probably could get.
Listen, he's not going to get there, and he's not going to get to where he is in life today if he were a genuine radical. That's just the society we live.
But it was an expression of Latino pride, and that's
great.
A nice thing to see today, to be quite frank.
Yeah, given like the assaults on the undocumented community recently, the vast majority of whom are Spanish speakers, it was good to see some celebration of that, right? So, some celebration of Latin culture.
It was nice to see the MAGA people and how isolated and just like how, babyish they are. They're just fucking babies crying in their corner, kicking people. Our friend Parker got kicked out of a bar because they turned off the Super Bowl and turned on the Turning Point USA halftime show, and he was like, "What the fuck is this?" And they're like, "Leave, get out of here."
Where was this bar?
Country.
Like, what, if you're a musician, you like listen to the halftime show, the shitty right-wing one, and you're like, this is just dog shit. Like, I'd much rather listen to the other one. Bad.
Like sight unseen, if I were blind, it sounds like dog shit.
Hitch my fish.
Kid Rock has always been dog shit.
Huh?
Kid Rock has always been dog shit.
Yeah, he's so bad, dude. It's like, he's like the worst of new metal. Like, the best of new metal is like, okay, I guess Deftones kind of. I guess you could consider it. No, who's the best of new metal? I think Carlos and I were talking about this the other day. It's
I say System of a Down.
Yeah, I'd say it's System of a Down.
Yeah, System of a Down.
And then on the other end of like that spectrum, you have like in the middle is like Linkin Park. It's like cringe and not good, but we have nostalgia for it. And then you have Kid Rock at the far end, where even like during the worst of new metal with those stupid baggy jeans, people were like, "This shit is stupid. Like, this shit sucks." Like, so fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I've always hated that shit, but
no, new metal.
Yeah, I was never a new metal fan.
You didn't like System of a Down, dude? What the hell?
They're kind of a step above the rest of new metal. I was never a huge fan, but I have some respect for them.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of bad new metal, so I
definitely
get it.
The vast majority.
I don't know. I'm pretentious about music, though.
Funny. Well, we were talking about, just because as an aside, that like that new band that I sent you.
Oh, the Angin de Point, the French.
Yeah, I think it's
the French prog band.
Yeah, they're actually Quebecois.
Quebecois French.
Yeah,
they're
weird.
Prog band.
Weird. Can we actually play it real quick?
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, send the video.
Yeah, I want to see what this sounds like.
So, I mean, I'm also a big prog rock guy and jazz guy, but I'm also a big metalhead. Anyone who knows me knows I don't shut up about Meshuggah. It's like my favorite band. Like,
yeah, you love Gent.
Yeah, Meshuggah is the best. Actually, not really Gent. I just like Meshuggah. It's the only thing I listen to. Like, yeah, Korn was good, dude. Back in the day, hell yeah, I agree.
I never got in the Korn, but I do think there was some musical talent there. I think I can recognize that there's musical talent there. But
wait, I think
really
here, let me get the link for you.
Hold on, I found the video actually. Yeah. Let me bring it up.
This band is fucking wild. They play like the guitarist plays microtonal guitar, which is so weird.
The costumes are very much a nod of the classic prog to kind of like Peter Gabriel era Genesis. Music was very mid 70s.
very minimalist, and it's microtonal, right? So they actually have quarter notes. That's wild.
Yeah. Doing the rock rhythm.
They're bringing dissonance to the masses.
From a scratched LP. Nope. It's supposed to sound like this.
Dissonance.
A little dissonance won't kill you.
Come on, open your mind. New sounds.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, what I like to hear. I like
It would be wild to see them live. It would be so cool to see them live. I'd watch this.
yeah. Good taste, my friend, good taste. That is a very catchy.
There's so many overlaying tracks, actually. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. We'll end it there. It's almost over, but yeah, that's some cool music we've been liking.
Yeah. So now you come to Cosmos Stream to also check out weird music.
I will say that does remind me of listening to this stoned as fuck is awesome. Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Do it.
You know, I will say this, the ruling class seems to be on the offensive against weed again, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. You know, got to keep weed. We got it. It's not legal yet federally, but
Are they actually?
yeah, the
I
New York
haven't
Times
heard of it.
editorial board put out a whole anti-weed thing saying that it's been made too legal too fast, and just we can do a whole stream about how stupid this whole thing is later, but
Yeah. I mean, is it because they just don't like? I mean, you know,
it's because the alcohol companies are losing profit because
Yeah.
alcohol consumption is going
Nobody.
down.
Yeah, nobody's buying alcohol.
Alcohol
Young
consumption is
people
going
aren't
down.
buying alcohol.
And they're blaming it on people getting stoned.
But that's actually not. It's probably not fully true because I just feel like our generation just doesn't drink as much as older generations.
Yeah.
I think I saw a thing like a study where they were like Gen Z, or is that the latest generation?
Yeah.
It's like 10% of them drink alcohol.
Yeah,
10%.
exactly. Like, I mean, our generation doesn't really drink alcohol as much as the older generation.
Yeah. Either way, alcohol, and I imagine even if it's not true, some of these companies are blaming it on weed. So they're trying
They're
to
like, what I love is that like capital incentivizes making everyone. They just want to make everyone an alcoholic.
yeah.
It's their ideal state of affairs. What an awesome Was so
And
great.
so the two things they're pushing are like some people, like a very small percentage of people who like regularly consume marijuana will eventually like develop an allergic reaction to it and start like puking when they it's called like there's some weird name for it. It's like a weird freak thing. But they've been like pushing this as like, this big unknown condition, and it's actually more dangerous than it actually is. But it's a rare thing, and if it happens, all you have to do is like stop smoking weed. And
I mean,
It's a bad high, bro.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
other
you get
thing,
bad high sometimes.
yeah, I mean, I have heard of this happening a long time ago when I was in college. Like I did hear about like some of my stoner friends had friends who like started puking when they smoked weed. But the other thing is they're saying that it causes psychosis, which I do kind of believe that if you have like
Well, I've actually seen that. Like,
yeah, if
No,
you
that's
have like the
not bad.
potential for psychosis, that weed could trigger it.
That's actually not false.
That's not false, but
Yeah, but it's also
so-
like once again, it's like
stop smoking weed if you think you have
Yeah.
psychosis. And
yeah, basically. I mean, it's if you're susceptible to like schizophrenia and stuff like that, you should in general stay away from substances.
Yeah.
Marijuana induced psychosis is what they call it.
Yeah, no, but I think it's more like if you're susceptible to like schizophrenia,
right,
or-
but they're framing it as if marijuana is causing the psychosis.
no, it triggers
More like
it.
triggering it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, like alcohol doesn't really help schizophrenics either.
No, alcohol is terrible. It's causing mental illness. Like,
It's also
Yeah.
literally poison.
Yeah, so
yeah, I mean, I people who don't like smoking weed, but if weed has like a negative effect on them, they usually don't keep smoking it.
dude, I'm not
Right.
gonna lie. Yeah, the weed is getting so strong, man. It's like
Yeah.
it's
There are
getting-
companies who've been like purposely making weaker weed.
Yeah, like I remember
Dangerous.
jugging on some mids, bro, and like you smoked those Reggies. It was just like Mexican brick weed, all stem.
I remember sour
fucking-
diesel.
Yeah,
Sour diesel is like nothing compared to what they have now.
Yeah, dude, we got some crazy shit now. But like back in the day, these kids don't know how good they had it. We were smoking like sticks with like seeds in it. You smoked that shit, you didn't even get high. You just had a headache, and then
Yeah.
then start all over again. And if you ever got like like some good weed, some headies, you were like the guy. You know what I'm saying? So these kids, they don't know what it's like. They're smoking crazy moon kush and all this crazy moon rock,
Moon
all this
rocks, yeah.
crazy shit. But we had it rough. We had it rough, man. Yeah, but shit
my
is
take is, listen, if weed's not for you, just don't smoke it.
yeah, just
And-
don't smoke it.
yeah,
Let's
just
not
don't
make it.
smoke it and don't ruin the fun for everyone else.
Yeah. I stopped many years ago, and
We need to CRISPR up the ultimate strain.
They're already working on that.
Yeah.
They're already
Oh,
working on
God,
that.
yeah. Wait, where is here, Chris? I mean, not to like out you or whatever, but you could indicate your general like continent. Yeah, I mean, and and it's funny in France. I think from what I could tell, shit was getting. It's also mixed in with like the race thing in France very much because
Huh.
like shish, it's. I mean, it's North African, so yeah, it's yeah. So, and that's how it was here in the U.S. for many, many, many years.
Yeah, the Arabs love smoking weed, man.
Oh yeah, that's tough. If you're in Japan, you're not
dude.
getting any fucking weed.
I'm sure the weed they have there is awful. Grown in someone's like grown in a shoebox, like behind the wall of their closet or something. Oh man.
So anyway, enough
Yeah.
talk about prog rock and weed. My other favorite things to indulge in. Let's talk about philosophy.
It's time to nerd out.
Time to nerd out about other nerdy stuff. So there is this very interesting article that is a review of a book called A Social History of Analytical Philosophy by this guy Christoph Scheringa. And this article, now we didn't read the full book that it's a review of. So this is going to be more of a review of a book, which is kind of, you can criticize us for this if you want, but
Hey, but he
I-
quotes
I'm sure you will.
extensively.
and he quotes it extensively, and the review will make fodder for a lot of very interesting discussion, I think, because there's much to agree with in here, and there's much to criticize in here as well, as you were saying. And I think it will raise some good questions about philosophy, the relation to Marxism, what the role of philosophy is for a political militant, and maybe we can get into kind of debunking some of the myths about analytical philosophy, and just kind of get past some of the bullshit about this, and get into what we want out of philosophy, and maybe how to move forward in regard to some of the problems presented here. So,
Why don't you pull up the article?
yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the article. It's called "A Turd in the Punch Bowl: Initial Thoughts on Christoph Scheringa's A Social History of Analytic Philosophy," or Epignon crashes the party. And
okay. I would hardly say this is initial thoughts. The thing is like
yeah, I was gonna say this is an
Massive.
incredibly long review. And it's also a very negative review. This guy
horrible.
is pissed.
He
He's
does
like,
not say one nice thing about this.
he doesn't have anything nice to say about this book. And let me,
Holy shit.
yeah. And I can't really blame him, because there's a few other negative reviews that I had. There's actually a YouTube review that I had heard of this book that was pretty negative, and set me up for bad expectations, because I was interested in this book when it first came out, because, you know, based on the title alone, A Social History of Analytic Philosophy, you know, I like social history. I'd like to learn more about analytic philosophy, so maybe this is interesting. But in the end, the guy's what's the original title? Somebody asked. It's A Social History of Analytic Philosophy is the original title of the book that it's reviewing.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, how do we want to go through it? So maybe it's worth looking at. No, go up. Is that it? Yeah, let's look
Maybe
at.
we can start with the central thesis.
Yeah.
over here.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll read it, and then we can take it off. It says, the book's central thesis is that analytic philosophy was born in economic privilege, like every philosophy, and that it has been carrying water for the status quo ever since. It has been a force defending bourgeois liberal ideology and marginalizing radical alternatives like Marxism. It is somehow a cheerleader for colonialism and capitalism. These are also the messages that readers of the book are getting. So, for example, Zizek's takeaway from the book is that analytic philosophy is not politically neutral. It is deeply rooted in capitalist liberalism and the struggle.
You ran in the Liberal Party of Yugoslavia.
Yeah, I know. Like, what is Zizek talking about?
What are you talking about?
Adam Knowles in Radical Philosophy
You support the war in Ukraine. You're a fucking contrarian. You have no politics.
Takes the point to be that analytic philosophy is an intellectual tradition harboring colonial ambitions. He adds that Scheringa produces a persuasive case for analytical philosophy's fundamental role as a powerful intellectual tool of bourgeois liberal ideology.
Yeah, it really doesn't, from what I can.
Yeah, and so one of the things that Scheringa does is, I want to say, is he kind of says that analytic philosophy is just a continuation of the British Humean empiricist tradition, but that's not true. Like, there are strains of analytic philosophy that are Humean empiricist, right? But that doesn't mean, but there are also realist and materialist.
Well,
and
it's also
Spinozist, and
insofar as like analytical philosophy really starts with the Berlin School of Hans Reichenbach and with the Vienna Circle, of the of Maurice Schlick. Actually, it's more fair to say that it's a continuation of Marxism and neo-Kantianism, really. Like, it really, in Germany. Oh wow, we lost our guy. Oh, there you are.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So what was I saying? So yeah, and we'll get into it, but the real intellectual predecessors of the Vienna Circle are, on the one hand, the mechanical materialists like Buchner, who is actually someone that Engels engaged with, the neo-Kantians, and the Marxists. So that, if anything, initially it was kind of a continuation of debates between those three camps, where the neo-positivists, the logical positivists, fell more in line with Machism, though they kind of elaborated a philosophy that had been developed by Ernst Mach and also by Henri Poincaré, who was a very famous mathematician and mathematical physicist as well. He's a genius. So yeah, it's absurd. And so this claim that, so go up, can we look at the claims?
He's a cheerleader for colonialism and capitalism.
Yeah, but
defending
so I
bourgeois
think,
liberal ideology and marginalizing radical alternatives.
so I think a lot of the beginning of the article starts off with talking about the genesis of analytical philosophy, and in fact showing that the sort of first analytical philosophers, Maurice Schlicht and Rudolf Carnap and who else is worth naming? Otto Neurath, that all of these people were absolutely, one, they saw that they believed that their program had social significance, in fact democratic significance,
Right.
and two, as a matter of historical fact, they generally were aligned with the left wing in their societies, whether they were like SPD or anarchists, et cetera, or even like ultra lefts. Like these were not liberals at all.
Right. And I think this is actually from towards the end of the book, but this is just a funny passage. A tradition of empiricism liberalism, represented by Hume, continued by analytic philosophy, in spite of its ignorant self-image as just philosophy as such, rightly trembles at the wrath that might be unleashed by the powerful critical forces that its hegemony helps keep suppressed. Like, I don't know. I just found that it's such a
It's just so mawkish, dude. Like,
yeah.
Who do you think? Like, it's just so mawkish and grandiose. Like,
yeah.
So yeah,
And
let's go through.
Yeah, so he goes on to say, okay, listen, this whole myth that like analytic philosophy was like socially disconnected, is obviously completely wrong. And all you have to do is look at the manifesto of the Vienna Circle, which is very much, something that is embedded in the historical context, in the political times that it was written, actually. Thus, the scientific world conception is close to the life of the present. Certainly, it is threatened with hard struggles and hostility. Nevertheless, there are many people who do not despair, but in view of the present sociological system, look forward with hope to the course of events to come. Of course, not every single adherent of the scientific world conception will be a fighter. Some, glad of solitude, will lead a withdrawn existence on the icy slopes of logic. Some might even disdain mingling with the masses and regret the trivialized form that these matters inevitably take on spreading. However, their achievements, too, take a place among the historic developments. We witness the spirit of scientific world conception penetrating in glowing measure the forms of personal and public life, in education, upbringing, architecture, and the shaping of economic and social life according to the rational principles. The scientific world conception serves life, and life receives it.
I mean, it's obviously a highly optimistic appraisal of the scientific revolution, but it does show that they were socially aware, and they're making the point on the one hand that they are socially engaged, but also that philosophers, whether they like it or not, their work has social implications.
Right.
So,
and he even says, like, some of these people may like withdraw to the icy slopes of logic, but regardless, like, philosophy is penetrating the real world.
And it did. It actually did. People,
yeah.
people are not cognizant, but for instance, the kind of like Hilbert program style, sort of Russell style development of mathematical logic, that culminates in the work of Alan Turing. And Alan Turing is really the first, if there's a field called computer science, he's the founder of computer science. And if there's anything that affects our lives today, it is computers. So the icy slopes of logic, yeah, that knowledge ended up helping to produce the digital computer. So,
Right. And
you
for
know,
example,
whether they liked it or not, they thought they were in a cloister and their work would be, you know, out of history. It ended up becoming actually highly determinative in history.
and for example, some of these guys were involved in the Bauhaus circle, so they were involved in the arts and architecture.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's based.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah, 500 USD. It is kind of these weird, like, yeah, I don't, yeah, yeah, I don't understand that either. Capitalists are perfectly willing to do their work without knowing a single thing about philosophy.
yeah, I think that you can say that some philosophies might be more suited to socialism than others, but I feel like the capitalist class can kind of make use of any philosophy if it wants to. I mean,
Yes,
you
he
have
did.
Marx. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Noroff a little more in detail, but like I mean, like look at Curtis Yarvin. He's a materialist, for example.
Yeah.
He's like but
There's
then
a
on the
the point is there's a very complex relationship between philosophy and politics. It's not one to one.
right. So a lot of these Vienna Circle guys on philosophy, like I probably wouldn't agree with them on a lot of philosophical stuff. I would be more of a realist. But
Yeah, but I don't think it's fair to say that they were opposed to realism per se. It depends what we mean by that. Um, what's really important to them is cognitive significance. Like, what sorts of claims can you make, and what are you legitimately allowed to say, sort of, right?
right.
And you know, I don't think any of them really would. You know, I don't know. It's worth looking back, but I don't necessarily think it's so clear cut that they're anti-realists.
Yeah. I mean, they all have different views as well. There isn't one position shared by all Vienna Circle. And
So Maurice Schlicht was actually a friend of Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein
yes,
really enjoyed his work, and actually was one of the reasons that Maurice Schlicht got a job.
so Maurice Schlick is a very important figure in the history of the Vienna Circle, but Scheringa doesn't say anything about it except for Schlick was murdered by a mentally ill student in 1936. But what he doesn't say is that this murder was done by a right-wing anti-Semite who was radicalized by the way that the right-wing press was portraying the Vienna Circle as this kind of enemy of traditionalism and the German, you have the Austrian nation or whatever. And
It was Jewish science versus.
yeah, it was Jewish science. It was this Enlightenment, corrosive, modernist Jewish program to break down, you know, the Volk or whatever. And so the fact that Scheringa is writing this book about analytic philosophy and is not and kind of just glosses over the fact that one of their members of the Vienna Circle was murdered for the fact that he was associated with the Vienna Circle's political leftism. That's scholarly malpractice.
It kind of is,
To be
yeah.
honest. I can't believe that he knew about this too enough to. He doesn't mention any of the like. What the fuck?
I know, it's really bad. It's
And there's
really
a whole
actually
book about this called "The Murder of Professor Schlick: The Rise and Fall of the Vienna Circle."
Yeah, I also highly recommend Exact Thinking in Demented Times.
Yeah, I really need to read that.
I highly recommend that book. Yeah, these are two very good books.
Yeah, I need to read both of these because this article got me very interested in the Vienna Circle actually.
But I
So,
posted
yeah,
something, and it's kind of an aside, but it's worth saying. So, you know, the Vienna Circle is important, but there was also the Berlin School with Heinz Reichenbach, you know, who was a philosopher of physics. He basically founded philosophy of physics. Very interesting guy. And his older brother, Bernard Reichenbach, who he was close to, and who he kind of followed politically. He was actually he was a member of the executive committee of the Communist International. So
Yeah, it looks like he was part of the KAPD.
yeah, so these people were like, they really were, if they were not outright leftists, like in day-to-day life, they were associated with communists and with the left wing of the SPD. And actually, it's kind of interesting, like, what's his face? Karl Popper was actually very anomalous, sort of in the philosophical scene of like Vienna and neopositivism, because he was actually a Bernstein guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of his shit in, like, the open society work was just cribbed from Bernstein, the open society and its element and its enemies. So anyways.
Yeah, no, 500 USD, that's absolutely always a good thing to do, is to learn more philosophy of science.
Well, also learn science, because
yeah, of course,
philosophy of science is too often people just only read in the field and develop caricatures about how.
So this is how these right-wing nut jobs we're talking about, Maurice Schlick. For a full 14 years, young, tender flowers of humanity were forced to drink from the poisonous vial of positivism, as if it were the very water of life. The effect must have been horrible. However, there also exist delicately organized minds, fragile porcelain from the roots of the Volk, patriotic children of the Austrian soil, people who yearn for the beautiful and the noble. To pour the doctrine of positivism into these wide-open minds is like pouring chloric or nitric acid down their throats. And then this other right-winger says, the Jew is a born anti-metaphysician and loves logicality, mathematiciality, formalism, and positivism in philosophy. In other words, all the characteristics that Schlick embodied to the highest degree.
Schlick wasn't
like to point
Jewish,
out,
by the way.
but he was Jewish to them, He would like to point out, however, that we are Christians living in a Christian German state, and that is up to us to determine which philosophy is good and appropriate.
No, it's not, dumbass. That's not how philosophy works. like good philosophy is the one that makes me feel nice. Like, it's such baby thought.
Yeah, and it's just. Yeah, and also like the way that these people are talking about analytic philosophy, like take away like the crypto anti-Semitism or the plain anti-Semitism, and it's just like it kind of sounds like how some stupid leftists talk about. It's like, oh, it's just cold alien thought that's like detached from like the real, like embodied like existence of life itself, and
Yeah, we can definitely get into, like, kind of the post World War II situation, et cetera, et cetera. It's worth talking about. I mean, I can maybe also share my personal experiences having studied as an analytic philosopher, but
yeah, and it's also like he wasn't Jewish, but they acted like he was Jew adjacent because his philosophy was Jewish or whatever. It was Enlightenment is kind of what they're saying.
Yeah.
It was about enlightenment, rationality, and scientific. And
this sounds like they're just cribbing Nietzsche. I'm sorry. Nietzsche
yeah,
also said this kind of shit all the time.
yeah. I mean, this is just a classic kind of romantic, fascist, irrationalist critique of
dog shit.
Of good philosophy, I guess. But it's also what real anti-Semitism looks like, guys. This is what real anti-Semitism is. Just keep that in mind.
Rest in peace to a real one, Maurice.
Yeah, no, and yeah. So the Vienna Circle goes to war with the German Philosophical Society. And this is the context where you have the German Philosophical Society is taken over by Heidegger, right? Or he becomes like the rector at the Freiburg University. Okay?
Oh, Freiburg, not Heidelberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's listen to what he has to say, actually.
And yeah, the German Philosophical Society, they celebrate the Nazis coming to power. They sing Deutschland Lied and the Horse Vessel song. And so you know, this is where the world is at this time, philosophy wise, and
Look at what
the
Hitler
inner
said, too.
circle were against this shit. They were trying to
Wait. Can you go up here?
hold.
A month had been named rector. Not only did he publicly, but he even took to lecturing while wearing a Nazi
Yes.
stormtrooper brown shirt. Heidegger declared, Adolf Hitler, our great leader and chancellor, with his National Socialist Revolution, has created a new German state which will safeguard for its people the stability and continuity of its history. Yeah, Heidegger is also a very good example of, despite like many attempts to sort of rehabilitate and use him, someone whose his own sort of metaphysical musings are deeply, deeply tied with his politics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And anybody who argues otherwise is in full cope mode.
Yeah. Of course, you could selectively read this or that element, try to subvert him, contort his meanings. That's fine. Okay, do that. I don't care. You're entitled to do that. That's a way of reading. But I don't particularly find trying to read him, quote unquote, at his word, or is going to get you anything else but just some kind of.
Yeah, and some people say that he was just being opportunistic and going with the flow, but in this letter from 1931, he's clearly on board with National Socialism.
I forget what this lecture or book is called. I think it's called like Violence and Metaphysics, where he talks about like no, that's Derrida, but there's some essay that I'm forgetting. It's like metaphysics. Oh shit, my bad, guys. It's like metaphysics and something. It's one of the introductions to metaphysics or something by Heidegger, where he literally talks about like land empires and Russia, and it's really creepy. He's like talking about like
yeah, that's Duginism, or that's what Dugin gets all his stuff from.
Yeah. Less than blah 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 blah.
So yeah, everybody knows Heidegger's a Nazi, and there's no way around it. So these developments are the backdrop of events of 1934, in which many of the Nazi philosophers from the German Philosophical Society would collide with the members of the Vienna Circle at the International Philosophy Conference in Prague, in a pivotal event in the history of analytical philosophy, which is nowhere mentioned in Scheringa's book. And so, less than a year later, when the Vienna Circle confronted the right-wing philosophers at the International Philosophy Conference in Prague, a clash was inevitable. The principal nationalistic philosophy journal reported excitedly that the Congress had revealed philosophy be a turning point, as a certain Volk took its place in the development of the world spirit. One of the heroes of nationalist philosophy, Hans Driesch, presented a plenary lecture arguing for vitalism and a guarding place for metaphysics.
Yeah, good luck with that, man.
And he gets retired for not being Nazi enough. Here the Vienna Circle jumped into the fray with what enemies described as a vehement and well-organized attack, in which the circle decried metaphysics as meaningless. Viewed from the right, the positivists stood in the way of the metaphysical concept of the world that was to underwrite the German worldview. Reichenbach blasted Driesch's organicism as mystical, while Carnap denied that Driesch's organicism was sufficiently law-like to make it scientific. Schlick remained silent, but the next day he presented an entire lecture on the concept of the totality, in which he claimed that while the distinction between totalities and aggregates might be linguistic or pragmatic, it was not a substantive distinction. There was no whole over and beyond the sum of the parts.
Well, that's not true.
That is an interesting claim, though, because he is making this claim that he had a political message here, which is that there is no Germany above and beyond the individual.
In this case, this is very much, yes, true.
And people should not be submitting themselves to an abstract metaphysical concept of Germany, which I thought was a very interesting point, because we do, believe that in emergence, right? That like, aggregates do form entities that can kind of
Yeah, it's I've been thinking a lot about this.
But we wouldn't go as far to say that the individual no longer exists because they're now part of a totality. That totality is still mediated through the individuals.
Yeah, also, I think in this particular context, it's not helpful to think of Germany as some emergent entity above and beyond Germans, right?
Yes, yes.
It's neither helpful nor is it true. Now, like, there are instances in like physics or whatever where it is very much you are very much allowed to sort of talk about uh, emergent entities as collective modes of sort of like microscopic dynamics. And there it makes sense to talk about sort of those collective modes above and apart or independent of sort of the microdynamics or the so but yeah, I think in the case of like a nation, it's not particularly helpful to think that there's this platonic form, inhabiting who knows
Yeah.
uh, where the German, the Volk, the German Volk, above and beyond Germans, the
Right.
platonic nowhere. To
Yeah, I
ours, it's
did
just some shit about.
but I did think it was interesting though about this kind of like this fight against metaphysics is very much connected with them in this fight against this kind of irrationalist, nationalistic philosophy that's becoming very popular at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember what they mean by like metaphysics because today in philosophy and today people have a very different conception kind of like what metaphysics means, but in that time period it's very much theology or sort of like yeah, like vitalism and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Grand claims about metaphysics is not grand, like for them does not mean grand claims about reality, right? In any ways, like, I'm sorry, in this day and age, if you are making grand claims about reality, which in some way, shape, or form are not corroborated by present scientific knowledge, that I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, you're just basically reflecting on concepts in your armchair, which is fine, but I'm not sure what you get out of that.
But anyway, so that does not seem like a politically conservative program to me, at the very least. Like, this is like in the way that the Vienna Circle from this article sounds to me, it kind of sounds like they're trying to take this kind of project of enlightenment reason to to the limit, to really push it to as far as it can possibly go. And they're
Yeah, and
coming
look,
up against the most reactionary forces of their time.
yeah, it's that exact thinking in demented times, right?
Yeah.
And that's the demented times of the rise of fascism.
And I think like that kind of very precise, very rigorous, very logical thinking, like and people like mock it as like, oh, that's like Reddit atheism, or that's like, you know, but that's the kind of thinking that we need in times like today. Times like today where there's all kinds of bullshit irrationalism being pushed by the right
Well,
and
there's a certain democracy to clarity, right?
exactly.
You say something, anyone can in principle understand it, but obscurantism always went hand in hand with like the esoteric and with certain cliques and maybe even elites wanting to guard certain meanings amongst themselves, right? It's like a big thematic in the history of philosophy is esotericism. So, clarity is intersubjective and democratic in principle, and obscurantism is very much about guarding sort of knowledge. So, I think that in part is also why they were so committed to being clear about their, clear in thought and clear in language.
Yeah.
I agree with them.
Like in Sharinga's book, he mocks the idea of I guess G.E. Moore, like one of his favorite questions to like ask students was, what do you mean by that? And I guess Sharinga is just like very angry that that philosophers would do that they would like ask the question, what exactly do you mean by that? But like, what's wrong with asking that question? Sometimes
No,
you need people to clarify what they really mean.
yeah, I agree.
Like
Absolutely.
sometimes that's a good question to ask. Like, what exactly do you mean by that? Like sometimes
Yeah.
I need people to ask me that. Sometimes I'm just saying stuff and not thinking enough, and I need someone else to stop me and have me rethink what I'm saying and rephrase it differently so I can develop my thoughts in a more exact way. That's
Yeah.
not bad. That's good for both the person because they're having it explained more clearly to them and the person they're asking it to, because that forces them to rethink what they're saying and clarify and sharpen their thoughts.
I wonder what personal beef this guy Sharinga has.
He's definitely motivated by personal beef. He's got some
Like,
personal
I wonder
beef.
who shat on him, and he's like, just like, I need to now write a giant Twitter post.
Somebody asked him, "What do you think? What do you mean by that?" And
What do
he
you
just
mean
got
by
really
this?
mad.
Yeah, I don't know what the like. I don't know what this guy. Who is this guy? Let me look
I
it
don't
up.
know, and I don't want to just be a hater, you know. I don't want to be mean or whatever, but he's definitely got some kind of agenda.
Well, I mean, dude, we've shown like all of the fucking malpractice in his shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of malpractice in this book, and it's getting
Like,
positive
there's
reviews
a-
as well because there's a lot of haters of analytic philosophy in the left.
Yeah,
Who,
yeah, there is. Well, I wouldn't, I would say it's like, also, let's be honest, it's kind of like there's like a clique of people who have a self-interest. They've developed their own departments, their own field, where it's in their material interest to ensure that this field continues, right? And that analytic philosophy does not step in and take it over. And
right.
so they have a material interest in discrediting analytic philosophy, whether or not like critical theory, et cetera, that deserves to exist. This is a question apart, right? But I do think that they're trying to guard their territory to some degree, and this is kind of a way of doing it. It's discrediting, sort of, because if the left starts to like become hegemonically analytical in its philosophical inspirations, then goodbye Zizek, right? Like,
Yeah.
he has no raison d'être anymore.
So I like this quote from Otto Neurath. Above all, the fight against metaphysics and theology means the destruction of bourgeois ideology.
Which is
this
kind
is
of
some of someone mentioned Neurath inventing iconography. This is some of the
those are
isotypes.
isotypes, infographics.
And there's a good Cosmonaut article that talks about Neurath actually and his ideas of central planning from way back. But so yeah, Neurath is like the best example of like someone in the Vienna Circle who was like very politically involved and was like not a moderate left liberal type, but was like an ultra left communist who wanted to immediately abolish money and establish like a fully planned economy.
Based.
Yeah, like and anybody, honestly, like anybody who wants to study economic planning and think about economic planning, I think Otto Neurath is probably like one of the first people to look into, because
it's worth going through his involvement in the Bavarian Republic.
Yeah, so this article has a fun like kind of mini history of the Bavarian Soviet Republic. And for some reason Sharinga doesn't even really identify Neurath as a socialist. So he says he fell short of even the minimal precepts of socialism, which is just insane. The guy wanted to abolish money, and not even like
what arrogates Sharinga the right to say that? This guy was literally involved in a revolution.
Yes, he was involved in a revolution and wanted to abolish money. Like, I don't even think that's possible in the immediate term. Like, he's to the left of us, probably.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, absolutely. And like, he was thrown in prison for his political commitments. Like, what fucking commitment have you made, Sharinga, that's so like above and beyond that? Give me a break, man. It's ridiculous.
So yeah, he was part of the People's State of Bavaria. Kurt Eisner, who was he was like a socialist guy. There's Cosmo articles that talk about him as well, actually. But he pitches him to be an economics.
Wait, the USPD, that was
the anti-war split from the SPD.
Yeah, but that didn't go like KPD basically.
Well, the KPD came out of the USPD, and then it gets complicated because there's a Halle conference where the USPD merges with the KPD.
It's both ways. Like the right wing of that group goes back into the SPD eventually.
Yeah,
and the left goes on to form the KPD.
And it's Karokowski who went back into the SPD.
Yeah, but Karokowski was in the USPD.
Yeah, well. I mean, Julius Martov actually speaks at the Hal conference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, there's a book.
So good. That book is so good.
Yeah, to be honest, Julius Martov is much more like he's much more clear, and what's his face?
Zinoviev.
Zinoviev
Zinoviev, yeah.
is just fucking rabble rousing. He's just
He's such a
ranting.
populist rabble rouser.
He's just
He's a
rabble
demagogue.
rousing.
He's a demagogue for sure.
Yeah, he really is, honestly.
So yeah, they there's like multiple different like crazy far left governments. There's
Oh, it's a disaster. So there's
yeah,
one
there's even like this Bavarian Revolution of Love that's like an
Hell,
anarchist government of like 6 days where there's this anarchist guy Gustav Landauer and this playwright Eric Musham who are were kind of like romantic ultra left types, and they get ousted in a putsch, and Eugene Levine of the KPD ends up in charge, and you know, he got some cool KPD propaganda art here. I love how they make the Nazis look so evil.
Yeah, I do.
And Noraf is interesting because he is, you know, he manages to stay through all these governments, all these different switches of power, all these different kind of crazy far left governments that last from 6 days to 3 weeks. Neurath is there, and he's willing to pretty much work with anyone as long as he gets to you know, put his economic
As long as he
ideas
gets
into
to do
practice.
planning. I mean, he basically sees himself, I think, as like a socialist technocrat. So his work
Right.
can go on sort of independently of, you know, whatever existing government. Whether that's true or not is one thing, but you know, he
Yeah,
certainly
and
stay on.
he was, you know, his article talks about how he very much was interested in kind of like a type of planning that would be bottom up, and where the workers through their representatives would be in communication with the planners, and it wouldn't be purely top down.
Yeah, but you know, okay, so one thing I will say about this article is like it's clear that the author of the criticism of Sharinga is he's kind of like a rad lib type with plenty of delusions, and doesn't seem like so he kind of positively talks about Otto Neurath's idea that, oh well, it'll be bottom up. So what'll happen is that the planners will will listen to the people, and then they'll present them different possible plans, and then the people will vote on it. And it's like, of course, but then like, how do you not know that the planners will utilize their expertise to impose plans that are not necessary, or to develop plans that are not necessarily in the benefit, like that necessarily won't benefit the majority? Like, it's just like very kind of naive political thinking of like, oh well, we're gonna do it good and democratically, unlike those like nasty authoritarian Bolsheviks. Like, we're gonna do the real democracy by just saying the word democracy. And I don't know, I got kind of annoyed with that sort of thematic.
Yeah, no, and he's way too, the author of this is way too soft on Chomsky.
Yeah.
Towards the end. But
and Chomsky's cooked now. We all know.
Chomsky's absolutely cooked now.
He's washed.
But
sorry, man. He did good work, and now he just pissed it all away.
But yeah, I think
with this fucking petty moralism over how many years against Marxists, when his own moral judgment is just abysmal.
But I think it's important to see that like Neurath's philosophy, this kind of his philosophical positivism was very much connected to his ideas about bottom-up democratic planning, because he wanted people to be able to openly and freely and transparently communicate with each other, and that was to be, you know, a key ingredient to his ideas of this kind of bottom-up decentralized idea of a planned economy. And yeah, the philosophy and the political ideas were definitely connected, and the war on metaphysics, or whatever you want to call it, it was part of clearing the way for ordinary people to be able to eventually run society. And I think that's something that gets lost in a lot of these debates. So Carnap, they talk about Carnap, and
Carnap is actually my favorite
Yeah, and I didn't really know much about Carnap's politics until I read this, but
I mean, he's not my favorite, like in the sense of like his like as like in the political sense of, but he's my favorite in the sense that like he's a philosophical beast.
yeah. So yeah, Scheringa calls him like a moderate leftist. And but Carnap, I guess his views are pretty close to Otto Neurath's, is what he said. He was
Yeah,
a fan of the Gustav Landauer guy. So, these guys, it's a kind of non-Marxist socialism, I think, is what a lot of these Vienna Circle people were kind of interested in.
which is not true of Otto Neurath, by the way. And I think it's also, I think that also it's kind of not true either, because like we were looking at their manifesto, they're quoting a lot of the Austro-Marxists, right?
Right,
So
yeah, that's true.
I think they're not orthodox Marxists in the way that Scheringa would like, which, you know, who was at that time, what I'm trying to like even the
Right, a
Austro-Marxists.
Comintern, I guess.
Yeah, but even the Austro-Marxists were heretical in some ways. Like they had this kind of neo-Kantian thing going
Right,
on.
right. I mean, they
Sure.
were outside the Comintern.
Yeah, and I'm sure that like, Karl Marx would have found a lot of Austro-Marxism just distasteful because of its neo-Kantianism.
Yeah.
But, the Comintern, yeah. But then, like, I mean, Alexander Bogdanov, who was a very popular figure, he was not, yeah, he was not orthodox per se. He
Yeah,
was a
but he was
prophet.
always kind of in weird straits, and
Yeah,
but so point is there was also these are philosophically heterodox times in the left as well. It's
yeah, and
important to realize,
also,
like, the Second International was philosophically heterodox.
yeah,
Like,
and
you had
even like,
neo-Kantianism, you had the Machists, you had orthodox dialectical materialists, you had kind of the Kautskian, almost like Darwinian strain of Marxism.
yeah, I don't think that there was. I don't think in this period there was quite the sort of a notion of philosophical orthodoxy like it developed later on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it kind of was.
Because I'm not so sure that like Kautsky had like a particularly well thought out metaphysics or whatever, like
Right.
general philosophy. I mean, he would say he's a materialist, but I mean, you press him, he's not going to have particularly elaborated thoughts on nature and science, et cetera, et cetera.
But I guess Carnap in the 1950s, even, he supported desegregation, liberal immigration, was opposed to McCarthyism, and he refused a job at UCLA because they tried to make him sign a loyalty oath.
It's like, fuck that, bro.
Yeah. So, I guess he was never a public Marxist, and he didn't agree with dialectical materialism. But regardless, like, he was a man of the left, and he was a socialist.
Yeah, I think a lot of this turns on like, the argument that analytical philosophy so what I can tell, the argument is kind of like this. It's like at its origin, analytical philosophy was not left in the ways that Scheringa would like. And because of this original sin or whatever, it ended up becoming a anti-left force. It is very much like predicated almost on this like genetic fallacy that the origins
Right.
of this original sin is going to dictate the character of analytical philosophy throughout its history, which, as I said, is kind of fallacious because there's, it's in some ways analytical philosophy is just a technology. It's a way of thinking about how to do philosophy. It's a series of techniques. It's and in that sense it's a tool, and the social relations in which it enters into differ or change, right? And will dictate sort of the political content of the work itself. So I don't know. I don't really know what Scheringa's trying to do here.
Well, it seems like he's kind of arguing for essentialism, right? That's later. He says, the real puzzle is why Scheringa is so smitten with essentialism and essential properties. Every continental philosopher I know is always complaining about people who essentialize things.
Yeah, I
That's a
know,
bad
right?
thing. They don't want it. The positivists don't want it. Quine didn't want it. The Ridians certainly don't want it. The other continental philosophers don't want it either. No one wants it. It's the only thing that everyone can agree on, but apparently Scheringa wants it. Scheringa practically adores Kripke because he imagines that Kripke is a defender of metaphysics, essentialism, and essential properties. But this shows a failure to understand what Kripke accomplished.
Okay, the two most overrated analytical just philosophers of the 20th century, Wittgenstein and Kripke. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get shit for this, but completely overrated, both of them.
Right.
Wittgenstein, yeah, the kind of like cult of Wittgenstein is so annoying to me.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of is like the first analytical philosopher that you hear about.
Yeah, but and I don't know why Bertrand Russell showed him so much deference. Bertrand Russell is a much better philosopher.
Yeah.
And
but it seems like what Scheringa, I think he's kind of like a Hegelian Marxist, maybe like an Aristotelian Hegelian Marxist. And he likes essentialism. He thinks that Marxist philosophy needs to have a kind of Aristotelian essentialism at its core in order to be coherent. If that makes sense.
I've noticed this kind of weird resurgence of Aristotelianism,
Yes.
which, by the way, like in many ways, like no one has left the thought of Aristotle. I mean, like, just like you just read, you read the Organon, and you realize how much of our thought just still owes to it. But in other ways, it's just, for me, completely impossible to be an Aristotelian. Like, I just don't even understand what it...
Well, it just goes against, like, science.
I mean, I don't even... The thing is, people have to be clear about what they mean, right? The whole Entelechy form thing, like, no, man, come on.
Well, there's that, there's this one Hegelian Marxist guy, oh my god, his name is escaping me. Fuck. Jensen Souther.
Yeah, I've seen that shit, yeah.
Yeah, he's really pushing the kind of teleological essentialist.
Yeah, like... Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a revival of this stuff, and so I'm maybe Scheringa is part of that school, and that's kind of why he doesn't like analytical philosophy, because of this. But he seems to kind of be arguing there's like something essential here about some kind of essential property to analytical philosophy that leads to this kind of conservative bent that we see in a lot of analytical philosophy today.
Bro, and this is something we can get back to later. Any lack of radicalism of analytical philosophy doesn't really owe to analytical philosophy. It's the institutions which
Right.
Like, it is the neoliberal university. It's true of all disciplines, basically. Even the radlib ones that are claiming to be so radical. All of the actual radical content is just going to be just suppressed or suppressed by the neoliberal university. So it's like kind of, I don't know, just, do they think having like endless fucking conferences where Slavoj Žižek is the keynote speaker, that's like real leftist that's like real radicalism in the academy? Like, give me a break.
Yeah. So here, let me read this passage over here. The reason that the positivists were opposed to metaphysics and essential properties, I don't want religion or authority or armchair must be the case to dictate our theories of what is the case. Metaphysical reflection had handicapped our understanding of the world. Kant thought it was an a priori truth that there were 6 planets. Aristotle thought it was a central truth that men had more teeth than women. They don't. Ask your dentist. So what Kripke showed, and by the way, what Marcus did not show, would have been compatible with the motivations underlying positivism and Quine's project and any continental project that reject essential properties. We can have essential properties as long as we understand that we are free to reject them as soon as we conceive that they are wrong. This notion that you can reject an idea that you once thought important or maybe even essential truth is something that Sharinga just cannot wrap his mind around. Why do these analytic philosophers keep saying that things are supposed to be necessary and then rejecting the very same ideas? Or generally, why do they keep changing their minds? How is that allowed? This is a real problem for Sharinga, because if his attack on analytic philosophy is to work, he has to show that analytic philosophy is not just accidentally bad or temporarily bad, but he has to show it is essentially bad. It is irredeemable. You can't fix it. But how and why is analytic philosophy essentially anything? No matter. Sharinga is apoplectic that the analytic philosophers are not telling him what those necessary and sufficient conditions are. And isn't that their job after all? So I think that kind of gets to the bottom of it and what his problem is. But as you say, it's the academy and it's the kind of institutional forces that analytic philosophy finds itself embedded in that lead to this kind of conservative turn that we see.
Yeah, definitely.
And this article goes into that with this section, Analytic Philosophy in the Cold War Deep Freezer. And I think what's interesting here is I guess Sharinga like concedes that the Vienna Circle had like political interests, but he says that they were feeble or whatever. But when they come to America, they just like whatever those were, they hardly mattered at all, but which as we see isn't true. But when they come to America, all their politics just completely become abandoned. But what really kind of happens is the way that this article shows, and it cites this book, How the Cold War Transformed Philosophy of Science, is basically these guys got canceled. They couldn't get funding for their projects, and their ideas they were too leftist, really, for foundation funding.
Yeah, basically. And he does, and that book, which I saw it had come out a while ago. I was meaning to read it, but shows that like Rudolf Carnap did do some political stuff. He wasn't particularly involved. He wasn't an activist, but he certainly took a number of left positions.
Yeah,
and quite publicly. And in fact, the letter by Sidney Hook, when I heard the name Sidney Hook,
I know, I laughed when I saw that.
I was like, Sidney Hook is such a lame dude. Another trot to neocon or trot to anti-communist.
Yeah, first of all, it's clear that Reich is going to have no time for anyone who tries to downplay the original politics of the Vienna Circle. So yeah, one thing is that by the end of World War II, like a lot of the original guys are dead. Neurath, who dies in 1947, he's gone. So, by the time of the Cold War, like a lot of the OGs like just aren't around. But like we said earlier, Carnap didn't totally duck his head, but he was basically kind of deplatformed. And this whole Unity of Science program, which was Neurath's whole program, it basically is deplatformed by the U.S. funding agencies because it's seen as too left wing. It's seen as too left coded, basically. Here's what the Rockefeller Foundation says. An early memo, one officer at the Rockefeller Foundation, circa 1947, registered approval, even though he expressed some reservations. Sounds good, only I hope there's no faint tinge of pink in it. Despite that tinge of pink, the foundation funded the organization until it didn't. What would that tinge of pink be? Probably trigger words like social and unity, which I think is funny. So the Rockefeller Foundation does fund the Vienna Circle guys for a bit, but by 1951 it's basically over. And I guess they did kind of try to like pitch it as like funding totalitarianism or whatever, but the Congress for Cultural Freedom was just like interested in other people by then. And they weren't.
Well, they funded the Congress for Cultural Freedom because it was like much more openly anti-communist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rocket. They go with the Congress of Cultural Freedom instead, which is and that funds like a mix of continental and analytic philosophers.
Yeah, it does.
Like you have people like Raymond Aron in France, but
Ugh.
they're also funding people like Karl Popper.
Yeah, dickhead.
But so it's not so much that analytic philosophy was inherently right wing from the beginning and just like had these kind of leftist delusions that it finally are like cast aside as the program flowers into its full realization. As it's just that the Cold War basically deplatformed and silenced the original leftist vision of the Vienna Circle when it came to the US, for the long and short of it. And here's a meme that the author of this made. And this isn't to say that the Unity of Science project isn't like, above critique on philosophical grounds or whatever. The point is that it was like a left-wing project that was attached to a left-wing political vision that was very much oriented around how to create a centrally planned economy that was both democratic and bottom up and completely moneyless. Oh, and they go after Carnap. The FBI suspected Carnap of being a communist sympathizer.
And then Hoover's like, yeah, there's not much there.
Yeah. But I mean, you can only imagine why a lot of these analytic philosophy guys.
This article is long as shit.
It's so long, and I'm skipping through a lot of different stuff. I recommend everybody, find this and read it for themselves. But
it is
anyway, this is where Sidney Hook shows up.
Oh my god, Sidney Hook.
Yeah, Sidney Hook was a trot guy who becomes a full anti-communist turncoat and ends up working with the Congress of Cultural Freedom, the CIA front in the Cold War, basically.
Fucking lame.
Yeah, in 1949, shortly after lending his name to support the upcoming Cultural and Scientific Congress for World Peace, which is something that sounds kind of like a communist front, Carnap receives a letter from Sidney Hook regarding the conference, also called the Waldorf Conference, because it was to be held at the Waldorf Hotel.
Not bad.
Conference's literature had all the suspicious buzzwords that could trigger a Cold Warrior. Words like world and peace. Hook could not abide Carnap's participation in such an event and expressed his concern in a way that might illuminate the pressure of as academics would face during the Cold War. So, and this is also an interesting look into the intellectual kind of freeze that comes over the United States in this period, where despite the attempt of the United States to kind of posture as this paragon of free thought and liberty in the world versus the totalitarian Soviets, it's very clear that that the culture of philosophy in the United States in this period is very conformist and repressive.
Yeah, and then it's just basically a lot of this, he just goes through.
Yeah, and he also mentions Hillary Putnam. So after this kind of period, where there's this like the freeze period, I guess, there's a kind of thaw with the new left. And you have someone like Hillary Putnam, who becomes a Maoist and joins Progressive Labor, and he's the faculty representative for SDS. And then there's Noam Chomsky, who is the another left-wing analytic philosopher. And
yeah,
obviously, I think Hillary Putnam is someone we would more proudly uphold.
Yeah, he was a Maoist, and then he was always a Marxist.
Yeah. And he actually assigned Lenin's materialism and imperial criticism in his classes.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's not a good book.
Speaking of that book, the latest international publishers version of that book, it has a preface by Helena Sheehan.
Oh, really?
And she mentions the podcast that she did with us in it.
No way.
Yeah, she says I spoke to two young men from Cosmonaut, and they mentioned this book and their interest in it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm honored.
yeah. So we that's
We
kind of
made
funny.
we made
We just said it was a bad book, and we're like mentioned in the preface to it.
well, I have a whole spiel about how it's a bad book, but it makes an important contribution.
It's a correct book, but it's also kind of bad, but it's correct.
It's just written in, he's not a professional philosopher, I mean, that's fine. It's not what he did, right? And there are some arguments in it which are quite powerful and which are typical, they're typical arguments made against Kantianism, but they're not obvious. Like today you could find those, like it would be easy for us to find those arguments, but back then you'd have to kind of rediscover them, and he did. And they're clever arguments against Kantianism.
Yeah, no, I stand that book. I think I'm pro materialism and empirical criticism. I recognize that it's not like the sharpest philosophical work, and like if you want like really sharp arguments for realism, like there are better like works of philosophy.
I mean,
you can
basically
draw
the book that takes that book and polishes it to the standards of professional philosophy is David Hillel Rubin's.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a solid book.
What is the book called? Materialism and
Marxism and Materialism.
Materialism. Yeah, it's a very good book. Marxism and Materialism. Very good book by David Hillel Rubin.
I had my copy of it right behind me before, but I had to box up a bunch of my books.
Yeah, I have mine. It's an old ass version.
No, nice. You have a library copy.
Yeah, it's super old. Shit is falling.
Yeah, that is good analytic Marxism, right?
It is actually.
Yeah, that's like some people like, oh, analytic Marxism, it's all just like a bunch of bullshit. Like, no, it's not. That is an example of solid analytic Marxism.
Sorry, I also have to defend Jerry Cohen's.
Oh yeah, I defend Jerry Cohen.
Yeah. Too. I don't like the Presworski the Presbolewski. The Presworski, or like I don't like Reamer. I'm sorry, John Reamer. I don't like most analytic Marxism. But that David Hillel Rubin's is very good.
So I liked this quote over here. Academics think of universities as being safe spaces that protect them from anti-intellectual rabble outside. But what if they function more like prisons for academics, even today? If they obey certain intellectual standards and stay within certain reasonable limits politically, on both the left and the right, they will be rewarded with wine and cheese and conferences in exotic locations. But the sad reality is that they are in a kind of club fed for intellectuals. Reich asked whether philosophy wasn't better placed in the coffee house of old Vienna, or in teaching classes and giving lectures to adults in red Vienna. Are universities even good places to be doing philosophy or anything? It's a good fucking question, but it is a question that applies to all philosophers and academics, not just analytic philosophers. So,
yeah, I think this is a very interesting thought.
Because it's like, maybe a lot of the like fixation on clarity and straightforwardness and conciseness and rationality in Vienna Circle philosophy was a result of its being politically activated and being kind of engaged in various working class movements, right?
Well, they cared about workers' education too.
Yeah,
right?
they cared about workers' education, and if you're trying to educate workers in philosophy, you have to you can't waste their time on esoteric bullshit.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that if you tried to mention doing something like workers' education today, you'd be castigated for being an elitist or whatever. And trying to just get people to give a shit about political education in general is really fucking hard.
Right.
I don't know, man.
I thought there was a really moving story in here actually about Carnap, where there were a couple political prisoners in Mexico, because in 1968 in Mexico there was a huge massacre of protesters, like 500 people killed. like tons of people, even more arrested. Like it was made Kent State look like a picnic. And there were a couple of left-wing philosophers, Molina and Eli de Gortari. Well, he was a famous logician and Marxist, working both in traditional and mathematical logic and Marxist dialectical logic. And they were arrested by the Mexican government for their involvement in these mass protests. And Carnap, he actually formed the committee with the American Philosophical Association and flew down to Mexico and met with the prisoners.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah, so I thought that was a very touching story.
Yeah, I don't know what Scheringa's done that arrogates him the right to criticize people, but apparently he's been socialist cadre at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Has he? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe he has.
But
all I know is I did my time in the trenches and I'm burnt out.
Well, it's just this idea also that like the only thing that matters is like going to protest and like being like in the trenches per se, which is obviously important, but there are ways to contribute that aren't like that type of organizing and that kind of activism.
You could shit talk on a stream. I don't know. Yeah, I agree, but we do need a little more. I mean, I think now it's less of a problem than when we maybe were coming up, when it was literally nothing but intellectuals who were communists and stuff. But yeah, I think we have a lot of, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe our audience can say if it's, what we do is important. There's a slide somewhere where he said his job is to bring useful knowledge held in the... Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the role of a... I'd like to do more of that in science.
Yeah, and the thing is we can talk about how universities are locations of co-optation and prisons created by feds to destroy radical thought, but if all the universities disappeared and we lost all left-wing academics, it would make it harder for us to do what we do at Cosmonaut. Because in a way, Cosmonaut kind of is parasitic on what left-wing academics do.
Yeah.
We need those papers that they write, which are reliant on research that is funded and stuff. And to do the kind of DIY intellectualism that we do need to, there is a synergy with the official academic world,
Yeah, and I mean, and there's certain things where you can't do experimental physics or biology in your fucking basement. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
You need, I mean, whether it's done at a university is one thing, but I mean, like, I can't think of an immediate alternative. You're not going to tell a biologist to like stop being in the prison of the university, liberate yourselves and go do polymerase chain reactions in your fucking Ford Explorer or whatever.
One thing that I thought was interesting was
this guy's based. Yeah, I know.
Jean van Heijenoort.
I don't know how you say that.
Yeah. He was Trotsky's bodyguard and personal secretary.
Yeah, he was.
For 7 years. And he was also a
yeah, he was he was a logician.
He was a logician.
And his book was actually like kind of the Bible of mathematical logic for many, many, many years. For it kind of initiated a whole generation, in fact.
Yeah, and I thought his political development's kind of interesting. He was in the SWP, and then he leaves in 1946, and he kind of makes this argument about he says there's no necessary logical connection between Marx's fundamental hypothesis and his economic doctrine, where the fundamental hypothesis is something on the order of this: we can trust the proletariat to take us where we need to go.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. This is how he himself puts it. Now,
I-
this is
yeah,
a point.
I think that being a Marxist above all is, I think it's really about that. It's really a belief that if we are to get to socialism, the only class that can and will take us there is the proletariat, right? And everything else is kind of just subsidiary, whether you're a dialectical materialist or you like the labor theory of value, or you believe in the rate of the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, or what. All of those things are secondary.
Now, this is a point that the commentators have never failed to emphasize. For most of them, the manifesto has it all in the certitude of a natural science. Its fundamental hypothesis that the proletariat can and must take the fate of society into its hands, snatch it from the catastrophe into which the bourgeois is leading it, and guide it into communism, seems to them as solidly based, or nearly so, as the laws of motion governing the heavenly bodies. Without pausing to examine just what the modern physicist considers as truth in this domain, it is enough to observe that Neptune still follows the orbit marked out for it by Leverrier, whereas, unhappily, the course of the proletariat has, for more than a third of a century, been increasingly erratic. So much of that, it is impossible today to shrug off the necessity of a systematic scrutiny of Marx's fundamental hypothesis. So, I guess his argument is that the idea that the proletariat will produce socialism is seen as too scientific by the Marxists. There's this prediction by Marxists that the proletariat will produce socialism, but this is obviously not a prediction that holds in the same way that that heavenly bodies will
Well, by the way, heavenly bodies are also fucking complicated, even in classical physics. We literally can't solve for more than the two-body problem, and even then only under special circumstances. There's something called chaos even in the classical world, where even deterministic systems you can't predict them, right? So much less something as complicated as a human society.
right.
So it's it's kind of also bad and analogizing.
But I mean, maybe there's a point he's making here, though. Like, maybe some Marxists were too. Maybe they were too
Well, I think
dogmatic about how they understood the role of the proletariat.
Well, I think all of us probably agree now. Well, all of us here, right? That in this way we're kind of postmodernist Marxists. That no, there is no historical necessity for us to get to socialism. It's going to be contingent on a number of things. But I don't think any of that takes away from the fact that the only class which is motivated and which can take us to socialism is the working class. There is no other class. It's this or nothing. I'm sorry. Whether we get there is another question, but how we get there, there's no other class. There's no other social force. I'm sorry. I don't see it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't see it.
The bourgeoisie is not going to lead us to socialism.
No, it's not.
And the petite bourgeoisie is not coherent enough as a class to.
No.
So it really does just come down to the proletariat.
And the peasantry is disintegrating day by day. And no, I'm sorry, by its conditions of life, it's not capable of building socialism.
Right. And I guess his argument is to seize and hold power, the proletariat would have to demonstrate at minimum a rather high minimum at that of political capacity. Or exactly, it would have to show a capacity to secrete a devoted and perspicacious leadership, to control that leadership, to change it with speed if the need arose, not 30 or 40 years after a betrayal. Capacity for handling such problems is precisely what being fit for political power means after all. Without that aptitude, the fundamental hypothesis cannot hold.
Yeah, but at the same time, this is all very abstract.
Yeah.
This is like, even think about the Soviet Union. It's not like the leadership of the Soviet Union, this quote unquote evil leadership, emerged out of a vacuum. It emerged out of a horrendous civil war. It emerged under conditions of foreign intervention and siege. So it's kind of like very easy to say, oh, the proletariat should have been like that much the wiser and overthrown its ruling class like then and there. But hindsight is 2020. Right?
Yeah.
It was a fucking was a disaster. The Civil War, the opportunistic levies, the being besieged or invaded by 11 foreign powers. I mean, it also selects for a kind of leadership, right? Those moments of crises. What is the I don't remember. What does the author think about all these reflections?
Oh, this is what he says. He says, but this leads us to the more important point, and the point that shows that von Hagenort was not giving up on socialism. It is that there is no necessary logical connection between Marx's fundamental hypothesis and his economic doctrine. Some people give up on socialism, others cling to the refuted hypothesis, but that is a false dichotomy. You can dump the fundamental hypothesis and continue the socialist project.
No, you can't. I'm sorry. That's everything has been so many attempts to innovate on the successes that Marxists did have, as well as the many failures, and nothing has done better.
Yeah, it seems like he's basically saying, well, yeah, the proletariat, they had the shot and they fucked up. They didn't do the right thing. So therefore the proletariat isn't fit the rule and won't create socialism. And
and
you got to figure something else out.
Instead, we should have Noam Chomsky and then have him just rant about being moral, and that'll get us.
Right?
Because he's been so successful at building a socialist movement here. Give me a fucking break. The arrogance. God damn it. Motherfuckers can't even lead a fucking book sale, much less run a country.
Yeah.
No, I was kind of being facetious by saying postmodern.
Somebody rose a good question, though. Is it necessarily postmodern to accept some degree of interminacy?
No.
We do have a telos of some kind in the way that we have a goal that we orient towards.
Yeah, but having just because human beings have purposes or whatever, or direct their action, doesn't mean that that it's like essential to their nature and determines everything they do, right? It's
right.
I mean, one of the hopes for Marx was that so they're in a kind of sort of simplistic version of Marx's work, history had this kind of directionality, right? These transcendence of social forms, antiquity, feudalism, capitalism. And in all previous iterations of these revolutions, this process had been going on unconsciously. But Marx believed that in the transition from capitalism to socialism, that the proletariat would be conscious of this telos, right, or of this directionality, and would for the first time make the conscious revolution to the next stage in human development. So, so I don't think it's, I think in a way we still believe in that. We still believe that one of our goals is to elevate society and the proletariat to an understanding that the next stage is socialism, to be conscious of the direction of history, to try to take things to the next stage. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, I don't think that I don't know if I'm being clear. Am I being clear? Probably not. But
no, I think there is something to the idea that communism is inevitable. Not that that it's guaranteed in a fatalistic sense, but in the sense that communism is kind of the mode of production that is logically proposed by capitalism. Like, not that it's fatalistically guaranteed that communism will develop out of capitalism. Very easily the world could end and we could regress into some kind of Mad Max horrifying hellscape where the forces of production degrade and slavery reemerges or something like that. But if there is to be a progression in modes of production, if the forces of production are to actually progress, communism is the logical outcome in a way.
It's a higher social form.
Yeah, if there is to be evolution in the social formation and in the mode of production. Communism is a logical next stage, if that
But
makes
you know,
sense.
but what's it called? I do think that there's, and it's something worth interrogating. Is, you know, whether or not all of that is premised on a kind of principle of abundance that hits ecological limits.
Yes, that is a real question
That is a
because
real question.
degrowth has become a big thing in left-wing circles. This idea that, you know, that we don't need to really expand the forces of production. We actually need to kind of do the opposite, you know.
Yeah.
But a
And
lot of people like kind of rightfully point out, well, that kind of goes against the very basis of communism, which is
abundance,
abundance. Like
which
if
is
we
that
don't have growth,
things can be taken from the common store at no cost.
yes, yes.
Right. And I mean, yeah, that does in some sense presuppose a set of needs that people want to fulfill and stuff like that, right? And
Right.
but there's, you know, I think the problem with like I think from I don't know enough about degrowth shit, but the term degrowth just sounds like so much sloganeering. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing is like
in some ways we obviously do need to scale down production. Like we don't need to be producing like F-22s or whatever, or F-16s. Like, yeah, we can scale that down tomorrow. No one fucking needs that, you know? But there are other things like the production of hospitals. You're going to argue to me we don't need more hospitals? In so much of the world, we really do. I'm sorry. So it's kind of like, I know I'm probably just trading on, but I'm trading on the simplicity of the term, but then choose a better term because
yeah,
degrowth
that's the
is
thing is like
sloganeering.
whenever somebody like critiques degrowth, it's like, yeah, but that's not what degrowth actually is. It's like,
Yeah, well,
well,
then choose a better
then
term.
choose a
Stop
better term and
sloganeering.
stop making like stop framing it in a way that's guaranteed to make everyone hate it.
Yeah, you're just sloganeering.
Yeah. But whatever, that's a whole other discussion. Maybe we can do a stream about degrowth on another day. But that is kind of something to think about, is this idea of abundance and how much does communism rely on abundance. But anyway, there is it's funny, we were talking about Gabriel Rockhill earlier.
Yeah,
And
he's angry.
yeah, well, he actually kind of cites Gabriel Rockhill in this essay
No.
towards the end. But he does that after bringing up Chomsky and Chomsky's critique of post-1968 philosophy, whereas it's kind of like Chomsky's like infamous thing that like postmodernism is just like a bunch of nonsense. And you know,
I took a class with Etienne Balibar on Jacques Derrida's deconstruction, and after 12 lectures, I understood absolutely nothing out of it. And I know it's because it has nothing to do with my inability to understand things. It's purely because it was really a lot of vagary. Like, it really did not amount to much. I'm sorry.
yeah. And I think like Chomsky kind of like there's Chomsky's thing was like, well, you don't really need theory to know what the correct political position is. Like you just need morals. And as recent history has shown, like Chomsky really didn't have like a great sense of morals. So maybe
He
like
didn't really.
you need theory to like determine the correct political position, and like you can't just
Like,
base it on moral intuition, because as we've learned, Chomsky's moral intuition really isn't so great.
Bro, guys hanging out with Jeff Epstein and fucking giving. I mean, maybe he changed and he had stronger. I just remember listening to an interview one time with Norman Finkelstein where he's like, I really trust Norman's his moral intuition. And now I'm just thinking back on that, like, damn, like, Norman, you really should have trusted yours.
I know. It's so funny how Norman Finkelstein would talk about, like, you know, it's like after October 7th, Norman was like, I heard about these reports of atrocities, but I also was like so excited by this prison break and I didn't know what to think. So I'm thinking I usually contact Chomsky in moments like this, but I couldn't get a hold of Chomsky. It's just like, dude.
Because he has great moral, like a great moral sense. It's like, no, dude, you do not fucking Noam Chomsky. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, no, Norman, you were the one with good moral sense. You should have never been like listening to Chomsky. Ever.
Yeah, yeah. You're a moral titan. Chomsky hangs out with Jeffrey Epstein.
But in a way that kind of shows that like Finkelstein was like, because he didn't think so highly of himself and think he was this great moral titan, that kind of shows that, well, that kind of goes for him, because truly moral people don't tend to think of themselves as moral paragons.
Well, he has doubt, which is
Yeah.
human, which is very
Yeah.
human. One can only praise that. But yeah, the irony, and I was just like, that did not age well.
Yeah. But anyway, Chomsky's whole thing is, you have all these philosophers, and he says the left intellectuals who 60 years ago would have been teaching in working class schools, writing books like Mathematics for the Millions, which made mathematics intelligible to millions of people, participating in and speaking for popular organizations, are now largely disengaged from such activities, and have all quick to tell us that they are far more radical than thou, are not to be found, it seems, when there is an obvious and growing need, and even explicit request for the work that they could do out there in a world of people with live problems and concerns. That's not a small problem. This country right now is in a very strange and ominous state. People are frightened, angry, disillusioned, skeptical, confused. As an organizer's dreams, as I once heard Mike say. It's also fertile ground for demagogues and fanatics who can, in fact, already do rally substantial popular support with messages that are not unfamiliar from their predecessors in somewhat similar circumstances. We know where it has led in the past. It could again. There is a huge gap that was at least partially filled by left intellectuals and willing to engage with the general public and their problems. It has ominous implications, in my opinion. So he is criticizing a certain strain of kind of post 68 continental philosophy. But I think the author here kind of makes the point that it's not just kind of that form of philosophy that's at fault here. It's kind of all philosophy in a way. Like, all philosophy has kind of, including analytic philosophy, has cloistered itself off in the academy and become too detached from any kind of popular engagement and actually engaging in political issues that normal people care about. And
Oh my God, go up. Do you guys know Bernard Henri Lévy?
Oh yeah, he's terrible.
He's so bad, dude.
Yeah. And this is these are like the original kind of radical continental philosophers in France: Beauvoir, Sartre. And these are the new philosophers: Glucksmann, Bernard Henri Lévy.
Andre Glucksmann is such a shithead, dude.
Yeah, they're just total shills. And I think it's interesting how like Scheringa, his whole thing is that like analytic philosophy is like this ideology of the bourgeoisie and bourgeois liberalism. But if you like look at like what the actual philosophy of bourgeois liberalism was in the height of neoliberalism, it was continental philosophers, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that true? I don't know how you would assess that.
Well, actually, I guess it's both sides, actually. I take that back. You have both sides. You have Karl Popper and you have Bernard Henri Lévy. And Foucault, by the way, sided with the new philosophers. With these Foucault was on that side.
No, Foucault was also always a crypto. First off, he was into fascist shit when he was young, like during World War II in the occupation. But he was a liberal, and he kind of just hid himself his entire career.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Glucksmann sucks, dude. He sucks.
Yeah, and this is where it cites Gabriel Rockhill, where he points out that the CIA was watching a lot of these new philosophers who kind of came out of the post-68 era, who were going more and more anti-communism. And it was really this anti-totalitarian agenda, because more and more information about the Gulag was coming out, and it was really big in France, and everyone was talking about the gulags. And then the new revisionist historians of the French Revolution were coming out. And so now the French Revolution was being questioned even by people like Francois Furet.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of the Enlightenment was even being questioned. This idea that the Enlightenment legacy itself was just this legacy of totalitarianism is basically the idea. And
Yeah.
and so
Long live the revolution.
yeah, it was a very dark time for philosophy in France. And
consequently, it's also a period of philosophical senescence. Philosophy is really bad in France. It's not coincidental.
Yeah, here. Foucault, who was referred to as France's most profound and influential thinker, is specifically applauded for his praise of the new right intellectuals, for reminding philosophers that bloody consequences have flowed from the rationalist social theory of the 18th century Enlightenment and the revolutionary era. So yeah, there's just like, people find out about the Gulag, they actually realize, oh wait, the Soviet Union actually did do some bad stuff. And so there's just this total kind of counter-revolutionary moment in philosophy where everyone starts questioning stuff, and the new philosophers basically, what's called the new philosophers basically unleash this whole attack on Marxism and the Enlightenment itself, really. And that's kind of why postmodernism is seen as a CIA conspiracy, even though there's no actual evidence that the CIA was funding people. This internal document did show that they were happy that these philosophers were having these positions and stuff. But I don't think that they had to be paid to have these positions. They were organically coming to these positions.
Yeah.
And it's not too different from a lot of stuff Chomsky was saying anyway. Like, I cite Perry Anderson here.
Yeah, this article is super fucking long.
It's so long. Obviously, we're not gonna go through the whole thing, but and they go into the Congress of Cultural Freedom here, and
I mean, this is a book, dude. If you printed
this is a book, yeah.
If you printed this out, like it would be like 100 pages or something.
Yeah, and there is some stuff here where they kind of tried it down. There's some towards the end, they kind of try to defend Chomsky's work in linguistics, and he kind of makes an argument it wasn't as connected to the military-industrial complex as Chris Knight says it was.
Mhm.
I don't know about that. I mean, they talk about Reichenbach and how Scheringa kind of misrepresents Reichenbach as being more Cold War than he actually was, but I don't know. It does seem like he actually was pretty involved in the military-industrial complex stuff. So
was he actually? Did he change?
Here, let's read it. Let's actually read what it says. This takes us to the philosophers who worked for Rand during the Cold War. I'll begin with the research that was classified at the time, and I suppose the work that has the bullseye on its back involves the two then classified papers that Reichenbach produced in 1949. General form of the probability for war and rational reconstruction of the decision for war. Now, to be clear, I think it is entirely fair game to criticize this sort of work, in part because it was originally classified. But I think the criticism should be accurate, etc., etc. When you read Scheringa, you get the idea that Reichenbach was a regular Dr. Strangelove. But it's certainly not accurate to say, as Scheringa does, that Reichenbach was ostensibly attempting to lay the groundwork for real-life calculations to be made in the supposedly always impending war of the Soviet Union. A more accurate characterization of the work was that the Pentagon wanted to model Soviet doctrines in a kind of decision tree, assigning probabilities of them acting on each doctrine or a combination of doctrine, so that one might know what actions could unwittingly trigger World War III. That is, the paper had nothing to do with calculations to be made in a war, but calculations to be made so as to avoid a war. This is somewhat obvious from the titles of the papers themselves. So that's a weak defense, in my opinion, and even he admits it over here. Now, there are two ways to look at this.
Yeah.
The positive way is that the work helped us
No,
unwittingly trigger a nuclear
dude.
holocaust.
No.
The negative way is to say that this work could be used to understand just how far we could push the Soviet Union before a nuclear response was triggered.
No, come on.
For example, would a blockade of Cuba trigger a nuclear response? Thus, it could have enabled riskier actions by the U.S. So it's like, okay, like he was still collaborating with the military-industrial complex and helping develop the technology that would allow us to wage the Cold War and push the Soviet
Yeah,
Union
come
in a
on, bro.
corner.
Stop bullshitting us.
So yeah, there's some bullshit in this paper. It's not all good, but there's a lot of interesting stuff here.
Yeah, we recommend it.
Definitely recommend it. And yeah, they talk about Curtis Yarvin, and you know, and they kind of show like a lot of the philosophy of the new right
Is
is
not
not
analytical.
philosophy. It's first of all like it's
Well,
like
first-
Nick Land. He's getting this stuff from like Deleuze and Guattari, especially. There's that. You have like the Nietzschean element of the far right today, which is obviously not analytical philosophy. Then you have Peter Thiel, who is into what's his name?
He's into Nick
name?
Land.
He's into Nick Land, but he's also into Rene Girard.
I know. Yeah.
And then there's the evangelical philosophy of the modern right, which is just a bunch of gobbledygook. And so yeah, it's a mix of Carlyle, Schmidt, Nietzsche, and Ayn Rand, and
Yeah,
it's not Humean liberalism. As
No,
much
it's
as there is the critique in Humean liberalism, like this is not like the philosophy that is currently like killing us and destroying the world.
yeah.
And that's not even political philosophy is.
No, it's not.
So anyway, I think we got to get going, comrades.
But thank you for joining us, and I know it was a very philosophical episode. Next week we'll return to the not so icy slopes.
Yes, the not so icy slopes. We'll do something more fun next week.
And yeah, just recommend this to your friends and your colleagues and your family, and check out Cosmonaut Magazine if you can. Check out our Patreon, support us. If you can, subscribe to YouTube, get those numbers up.
Hold on, let me actually share the article so that people can actually find it themselves. Let me put it in the chat. So yeah, this is the article itself that we've been going through, and I recommend everyone read this on your own and check it out. And